So, yeah, and I think that's part of what we have been trying to do in Evanston is to change the language so it's more about that there are multiple pathways to success. But the fact is, even if you change the language, people's belief system has to really be there, because otherwise it's just lip service. And I feel like there's still a lot of work to do in our community. Evanston, for example, just if you take Evanston is one of the most well-educated communities in Illinois, because, we have Northwestern here. There's so many people with master's degrees and PhDs. And so for families, for example, to say, oh, it's okay for my son or daughter to go to culinary school, there's a lot of peer pressure for them, as well as a sense of like, what did I do wrong? Why isn't my student getting an MBA from Northwestern? Where did I go wrong?
You are listening to the Global CTE podcast with your host, Sylvester Chisom.
So, hey, I have my great friend here, Shelley Gates, amazing rock star in career tech education, a CTE director from Evanston. We met at Vision years ago, and now she is living the life of a retired CTE professional. But we're having this conversation, and this is like an impromptu episode, but it's just, Shelley just has so much knowledge. She just keeps dropping gems. So I'm like, Shelley, we have to record this conversation. So let's continue. You were saying CTE now versus CTE like in the past, like some of these opposing views. What?
Yeah. So connecting it to what we were talking about who has access to CTE in Chicago, and the fact that alternative school students really don't have access to CTE, and they may in fact be students who need it more than anyone. What it made me think about when I read that is that there's two kind of like opposite narratives about CTE. One is it is for kids who can't go to college. It's for kids who we don't know what else to do with them. We just want to get them out of our hair. So let's put them in a hands-on class. And then the other part is that what employers are saying and what the job market says and what students say and what their families say, they want kids to have real skills that will translate into success when they graduate from high school. And I just feel like those two messaging kind of, I don't even know, juggernauts, they're so opposed. And it's hard to get to the middle ground, which is that all kids need practical, hands-on skills. Applied skills are not lesser. They're not less skills. And they help kids really figure out their purpose in life. Like, who am I and what am I good at? If you can never do anything hands-on or applied, how do you know that about yourself? And then you spend 4 years in high school thinking like, hopefully college will be the answer for me. And then it turns out that it's not for a lot of kids.
100%. Like, I think it helps to give college more purpose if that is the route. But however, I think what's going to really push the shift is industry, the needs of industry, and industry going away from mandatory 4-year degree versus credentials, skills. I've had so many unique conversations, like things that are on the front end, like right now, like mastery-based transcripts, things that are like, if you can demonstrate and verify that you have a skill, like even the class you had, like the geometry and construction, those kids are building homes. So if I'm a home builder, like I may take on your kids coming out of high school. Like, I'm just curious, did you see some of that kind of behavior?
Well, that's it. Yes and no, because with geometry and construction, the way that we were doing it at Evanston High School, kids who are taking geometry are freshmen in high school. We didn't have we didn't have the vision or the ability to keep that pipeline going. So if you're a freshman and you take geometry and construction, you're like, this is so cool and I love this. What is the next thing you do while you're in high school? Maybe you take an engineering class that focuses on architecture, which, Project Lead the Way has a great class. But does that necessarily keep you going and excited and swinging a hammer? And if that's what you really like. So we did start an after school program with the Evanston Rebuilding Warehouse, which actually Tana, who I was talking about before, she helped make that connection for us. So then we started having an after school program so kids could keep doing those skill building kinds of things in a fun environment. I think that eventually it will translate into more young people saying, yes, this is the track I'm on, and they could feel okay about it, because that's the other problem with Evanston and a lot of schools like Evanston, for kids to feel comfortable saying, I'm going into the construction trades and be proud of it. The counter messaging at schools and, high school kids are they're vulnerable to a lot of messaging, and they feel they want to be doing what everyone else is doing. And, the college for all messaging, despite many efforts we've made at ETHS, it's so difficult to counter that. And so kids have to have such strong self-esteem to be able to
I was just about to say it, that connects back to the belief system. And that's something that really takes time for you to say, you know what? This is my journey. Let me take ownership of my journey. These are the skills I have. Mm-hmm. I love culinary. I love construction. I want to be an entrepreneur. I love coding. So let me find this is my path and not trying to be concerned with, I'm going to Northwestern. Just so you can try to keep up what you think makes sense versus
when you're
that takes a lot of time. We still have adults that struggle with the same thing of like you chose a career path, not for happiness.
Your family judges you, or you feel like your friends are all doing something different. So and I think that's part of what we have been trying to do in Evanston is to change the language so it's more about that there are multiple pathways to success. But the fact is, even if you change the language, people's belief system has to really be there, because otherwise it's just lip service. And I feel like there's still a lot of work to do in our community. Evanston, for example, just if you take Evanston is one of the most well-educated communities in Illinois. Because, we have Northwestern here. There's so many people with master's degrees and PhDs and blah. So for families, for example, to say, it's okay for my son or daughter to go to culinary school, there's a lot of peer pressure for them, as well as a sense of like, what did I do wrong? Why isn't my student getting an MBA from Northwestern? Where did I go wrong? So there's it's a lot. There's a lot of emotion. It's very emotional.
Yeah, and it's my personal view is I think it is a little misguided in the sense of there are restaurateurs that own 50 restaurants. Mm-hmm. There are people who have food trucks and they're beyond happy with the life that they have, or, making cupcakes. There's a place here in town that's like nationally known here in St. Louis, Jilly's Cupcakes. I remember when they started that business and it's like super successful. So I think sometimes we're working through the silo, the lens of what we have seen. And if I'm a lawyer, I know lawyer success versus if I'm in culinary, I know like 10 people who have amazing restaurants or whatever. Showing, I think it's important too to show these kids like these are the different, try to make that more clear. Like these are the career options that could come out of this. This person does this. This person took that information and that passion and turned it into this, so that maybe that helps to make you feel stronger and more confident in what you're saying that it is that you want to do. Because you can find success, like massive success in any industry.
Absolutely. And I think that's that's just like there's such a mismatch, not only with people's perceptions about all of that, but also just like what we teach in high school. How much flexibility is there for kids to really explore interests and to learn from other people who are successful? And, in a typical day in a high school, you got English, you got math, you got science, and it's very siloed. And there's not a lot of opportunity to make connections. Even for this example, science and culinary, we talked about that occasionally. Oh, we should do a class where there's but the system is so freaking rigid. It's very difficult to break out of that and allow kids to have different types of, experiential learning. I mean, geometry and construction, amazing. Algebra and entrepreneurship, amazing. Those things were so difficult to implement. And
how did you do? So for anyone who's listening to, so we've worked together over the last, 5, 6, 7 years with your algebra and entrepreneurship class. How do you even vision that? Because I'm sure it was an uphill battle putting something like that into a public school system, not a charter school, but where you really have a lot more rigid rules. How do you do that?
The way that I think we were able to do it at Evanston it was, and I always tried to do this as a department chair in CTE because, CTE is like the little scrappy department that needs to keep its own stuff going. Yeah. But I really think some of it, geometry and construction just hit a note in the sense that so many kids struggle with geometry. I really think it was more about like, oh my gosh, how can we help more kids be successful in geometry? And, the guys in Colorado who came up with the program, they figured that out. And so then they went and sold it other places. And I went with the math department chair at the time. We went and saw them speak. And I was like, we have to do this. This is freaking amazing. And at that time, we did not have a construction class in our school. We had gotten rid of them all in the 80s when, CTE was going out and we were all going to go to college and we didn't need that hands-on stuff anymore. So to bring that back, I was like, this is a win-win. We can have a construction class. And they had research that showed that kids who took geometry and construction did just as well in geometry, and some kids did so much better. So we were able to go back to our administration, but also, Evanston is a very wealthy community. We were able to, we didn't have to scrape as much to get the money together to be able to start the program. And we had all these community partners. The city of Evanston helped us, and then community partners for affordable housing. And it's a lot of like bringing people together. Who went out and did let's bring these people together? Was that community organizer? Was that a lot you, or just you had other people? I would say it was me. With the help of some other administrators at the school. Once we decided to do it, then I think it became also like a little bit of a PR, kind of like a strategy in our community. Oh, here's a cool thing that the high school could do if we build a house every year. Yeah. That is an affordable housing, part of the affordable housing strategy in the city of Evanston, which is a huge issue because you know what this community is like. So you were really solving the community problem, and that's how you were able to get that big buy-in. I keep hearing this from like some of the people that I've had on the podcast talk about this level of self-advocacy for the CTE department. Like you saying, like, no, I went out into the community and, I'm leading this charge instead of maybe being indecisive or sitting on a good idea. That matters. I think that's huge. And being a person who can find ways to navigate the system, whatever the system is, because you have your own high school system. Then, there's the state system that provides funding. There's the Perkins Act. There's so there's all these different systems that you kind of need to negotiate. And I think most of those systems need a nudge. They need to be pushed because right now we're not serving a lot of kids in the ways that they deserve to be served, in my opinion. So to me, it's like looking for those opportunities to provide more. My whole thing always was experiential learning, real learning, meet real professionals, see how your skills can really be able to launch you into something that's going to be your future. So with that being said, is that like, now I'm going to move to your algebra and entrepreneurship, like that comment you just made, is that why you wanted me to, I'm just curious how you thought about our relationship. You're like, oh, this could work in this way. What was your thoughts on? Okay, so after we did geometry and construction, the math department chair and I were like, well, geometry and construction at our school, it serves a lot of kids who are very successful. They're taking geometry their freshman year. What about the kids who are not ready for geometry their freshman year? They're taking algebra. And as you know, because you've met the students, they're not the most engaged students because many of them have not experienced a lot of success in school, pre-K through 8th grade. So then they're coming, this is their freshman. So Dale and I, who the math department chair, we thought, okay, we should do something that is has the same qualities as geometry and construction, but we should do it for the students who really in some ways could benefit the most. And that would be kids who were taking algebra their freshman year. And that's when we threw around a lot of ideas. Should it be algebra? I think Dale wanted to do algebra and art, but I was like, no. I can see that too. Okay. Yeah. I think that's cool, but no, I feel like it should be more real. I mean, art's great, but I wasn't sure. I wanted it to be like, I'm a CTE person. To me, it should be about like financial literacy, understanding money, coming up with an idea and turning it into a business. I mean, that's so cool for a freshman to be able to do that. So we got really excited about it. And that's when we decided to start the program. And then we met you at one of the ACTE conferences. And we were like, whoa, this is what we're looking for. This idea of the entrepreneurial spirit, the skills you need to be an entrepreneur. Plus, Sylvester, you're such a great mentor. The kids really respond to you. You like really care about them. And that's like so much of the
hold on, listen. I didn't know this is from one of your kids, she had a bracelet business.
Yes, I remember. Yes.
Very successful. She was on Instagram and doing the whole thing. And I told her, I said, hey, when I come to Chicago, I want to have a bracelet for me. And I legit wear this every day.
That's good. That's what I mean. That's it. That to me, that's the whole thing. Like and I don't even know how to like quantify that experience for that student. Like, what does that mean for her? But as a freshman, a student of color, a girl. Okay, so she's doing something that is really out of the norm at our school, where she's creating her own business. She's creating her own brand. She's developing all these business skills. Like, how can that not be the best possible thing?
And you know what I love, first off, just your entire department, Dale, Darlene, Aaron, Chris. What's the new young lady's name?
Ilma.
Yeah. I love her too. Like, the whole team, the synergy and the desire to really support these kids is incredible. I believe that starts at the top, like the way you led your org. But I think it's so powerful that you're equipping these kids with this level of interdisciplinary. So it's algebra in context of starting a business, or geometry in context of construction. So now you help personalize it and make it real for the student, which now it's enjoyable. It's an enjoyable experience, but then they walk away with all of these like durable skills, like you said, the confidence, the communication, the collaboration, some of the issues that these kids have to deal with. Like, we were business partners, and then now I don't think I can work with you, or we have to, we had this idea and now we have to shift gears to something else. You and I know this as adults, but it's like, these are really the durable skills that they can walk away with and apply to other careers and continue to build upon that early success to say like, oh no, I had this idea, I created it. It's something about that, like, my ideas are valuable. So I have trust in myself to make a decision on something.
Exactly. And hopefully, in addition to it, I mean, again, these students in Algebra and Entrepreneurship, they're the vast majority, they're freshmen. I do think, and it's not something that we really studied or looked at too carefully, which we probably should have, is how does that affect the rest of your high school career too? I mean, it's one thing to think, okay, well, that's going to help you when you leave high school, but they still have 3 years of navigating high school. And I hope, and I do think that we see that with a lot of the kids, that those skills that they develop, because like you said, it's not just, algebra, and it's not just entrepreneur. It's like communication and setting a goal and meeting it, communicating with a partner, negotiating a problem, all those things. And that's what I just wish more of high school was about, those skills, and less about content, which may or may not really resonate with kids. And I do think that's a problem now. I feel like kids after the pandemic, kids are like, why? Why am I learning this? Why, when the world is so, so many huge, why am I talking about, I mean, I'm not going to bring up anything in particular. I don't want to insult any subject areas, but I do think that there needs to be a real examination of the relevance of so many things that we're asking kids to learn in school, because they aren't buying it as much anymore. Especially because a lot of them are like, well, why? I'm not going to go to college. I can't afford to go to college. I don't see the point of going to college. So why am I don't need to get a good score on the ACT. I don't care what my score is.
And it's okay if we help them find their path. And I think really CTE offers such a great opportunity when it's done well and it's done right. Like these kids gain early exposure to things that they're interested in. And it's like, oh, okay, well, now I can follow this path. I really can. So I'm just curious. So when you think of all your experience, what makes a great CTE teacher?
What makes a great CTE teacher? Oh, man, that's a good question. I think it's belief in the students. Huge. They have to like high school students. I think all teachers should like kids, but sadly, that's not always the case. They have to really connect with high school kids. But I also feel like in our department at ETHS, we have such a great group of people who are kind of entrepreneurial themselves. And I think having that mindset of what can we do to improve the program so more kids earn a certification or more kids do work-based learning, or how can I add more real-world experiences? How can I take the kids on more field trips? I always love when the teachers will. Taking high school kids on a field trip is really hard and takes a lot. I mean, you have to it's kind of risky. You know, high school kids. So if you're willing to take them out of the building and take them to Ronald McDonald Hospital thing and have them cook with the actual chefs there. There's so many opportunities for a kid. If you're a teacher like that and you're willing to do that, put yourself out there and do something out of the norm, that to me is a good CTE teacher. Also, just being a good team member. I mean, the CTE teachers at Evanston, they really support each other. And I think that you have to have that because it's a really hard job. There's a lot of days where you just are not experiencing a lot of success. So you really need to be there for each other.
All right. So now I'm going to go up one level. So then what are some best practices to run it for a CTE director or leader? What are some things that you have found that have helped you to navigate success?
I think, you know what? I was thinking about this recently. Well, now, of course, because I have all this time to reflect. But, right?
That's why I'm asking you, because I'm I know you.
Yeah,
wrong.
Okay, I'll just put it this way. What I've really been thinking about recently is there's a lot of emphasis in teaching now, having high expectations for kids with a high support and kind of being what some of the gurus call being a warm demander, where you're incredibly warm. You show the kids, or in my case, show the teachers, I care so much about you. And actually, you can't just say it. You have to really do it. You have to care. And I just admire CTE teachers too. That's another thing. I'm just so impressed with their skills. But you also have to have expectations. And I think over time, in our department, we all kind of bought into this idea of let's keep pushing ourselves. Let's offer more classes. Let's do things outside of the box. And that to me is the demanding part, where you're saying what CTE has been in the past is not good enough. We need to keep moving it. We need to keep upping. We need to upgrade our facilities. We need to upgrade our curriculum. We need to invite employers in. We need to take the kids out of the building more. We need more work-based learning. And I think having those, and then I think the teachers really at ETHS anyway, they responded really well to that. I feel I think that's what everyone wants. They want to know that people believe in them. And I definitely believed in the teachers, the CTE teachers, and the amazing things they could do. But I also had high expectations for them.
I love this warm demander concept. So I like how
I did not invent that, Sylvester.
Right. Okay. I know, but I think it's just, I love the application of it to CTE. From a leadership standpoint, how does the warm demander demand, what expectations does that person put on themselves? So what did you put on yourself? I like how you share outward, but how did you?
Okay. Well, looking back, when I took over as the CTE department chair at ETHS, it was a mess. It was very old school. There was not a lot of buy-in, a lot of cynicism, a lot of, I think for me, it was the challenge of, I think ETHS has the potential to have a fantastic CTE department, because if we can't do it, who can? I mean, ETHS is a very well-funded school, a lot of support in the community. I think I put an expectation on myself so that we would, And actually, we really did kind of transform the whole department. New courses, upgrading all the old courses we had. We took all of our old industrial tech classes, we turned them into Project Lead the Way engineering classes. And the teachers, we did it together. I mean, I think that's a lot of it. I feel like maybe because I am not really a CTE teacher myself, I don't know. I think that helped me in some ways. I do not have the technical skills really to teach any of the classes in my department. So I always had to really depend on the teachers. Is this doable? What can we really do? What is possible to teach? So I couldn't tell them what to teach. They had to tell me. This is what kids need to know. And I think then I was able to like help make it happen. And I had a lot of buy-in from the admin. Also, I mean,
that helps. I mean, that helps. Like you can't like not include that part, like having the support of the school administration, and or even like what you also said, the Evanston community is supremely supportive as well of the school. So I think all that helps too.
And supportive of our CTE department. And honestly, I think it was helpful. I mean, I live here. My kids went to Evanston High School. I know a lot of people here, and in that job, I think a lot of people were like, "Oh wow, Shelley's doing the CTE thing." I mean, I have a master's degree from the University of Chicago. Like, I'm not your typical CTE person, and so I think people are like, "Wait, what's happening?" Like, because I'm kind of an academic kind of person, and so I think I brought also that mindset of like, whatever you thought about CTE before, you should throw that out and think of it in a new way, which is that it is the way for kids to find out who they are, what their skills are, help them connect with reality. Just that whole idea, like for some kids, meeting you, Sylvester, life-changing. Why can't every kid in our building have an opportunity to meet a mentor, a person who can show them a whole new way of thinking about themselves or what they might do in the future? So I think I kind of brought that passion to it. I'm definitely not a rule follower per se. Definitely
You're
not.
Innovator, Shelley. You're innovator. You're innovative. You're looking for the most innovative approach to get the results. You're not limiting yourself to like, this is how it's always been done.
I think that I do have my motivation always was to push the limits, which sometimes was successful and not. I mean, it's kind of a burnout, honestly. I mean, the school systems in our country are so entrenched. High school education, how different is it today than it was 150 years ago? Not that different.
It's funny you say that. Yeah, but the careers are different though. That's the thing. It's like the careers are different, and for us to try to prepare these kids for what's next. So I'm curious in terms of what's next. You've had your first summer off. So what are we going into consulting? What are we thinking? What's next for Shelley?
Don't know. The only thing I've committed to now is, as I said before, I'm going to help with the work-based learning efforts at Evanston. I'm going to stay connected with that and help, because that was a whole nother part of the CTE world that, I mean, it is part of the Perkins, the college and career readiness now is having work-based learning experience. Like, I'm totally into that. So I want to help build that at Evanston. And I don't know. I really, other than that, Sylvester, I'm not really sure. I'm helping one of my friends work on her dissertation right now. And I'm taking an improvisational quilting class.
Is that what behind you there? No, is that something you made?
This is not improvisational, and I did not make this, but I have been making. I'm not going to show you what I've been working on, Sylvester, because being improvisational is hard for me. But I'm doing that because I realize like these are the kind of things like now I have time to. Oh, and I'm also learning how to play pickleball.
I love it. My uncle plays pickleball. Yeah, I love it. But listen, hey, anyone listening to this, I know you just received so many amazing gems from my good friend Shelley Gates. This was a master class in CTE that you just gave, impromptu. Thank you so much for sharing. As I always say, you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great.
Thank you for listening to the Global CTE podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to be the first to know about future episodes.